We live in a world ruled by tyranny, where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth, a network of courage, a network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, ORRA the Informationalist.
Nothing like this.
Please just tell me what's happening to me in plain English without the mumbo jumbo.
My ORRA is a network full of awareness and gifts like ORRA, the Informationalist.
And we're having technical difficulties, folks. Oh, man. This is insane. All right. All right, people. Let's all right. So I'm going to get this started here because, Lynn, I'm going to tell you something. Welcome to the Network of Awareness, folks. My patience is very much getting tested this morning with my guest, Dr. Lynn Carey, who many of you are not, she's not a stranger to the show. And this is episode 96 of season 5. Now, if you're listening, the intro completely just got disrupted, and I don't know why. But what we will do is we will play some music and see if it will actually play for us. Just so we... Okay, great. So many of you that are not a stranger, that know that Dr. Lynn is not a stranger to the show, she came on to the show before, and we decided that we were going to discuss, instead of talking about her book and all her great work that she does, that we was going to talk about narcissism, and we was going to talk about the pandemic and things that have transpired. And I don't know if we're in post-pandemic. Some people think we are, but I think we're still in mid-pandemic. And we're just going to discuss a lot of the things that are going on in the United Shenanigans of America when it comes to narcissism. So today's show is episode 96 of season 5. It's Narcalyptic. And because we've had some difficulties, I can tell you that it's going to be a great show. So now that we got the music back on, and since, it's kind of weird, I just wanted to test that out again, Lynn, because that's never happened before where the music it completely shut off. So I'm going to definitely have to do a system test sometime later today. And it's interesting that this is happening because I have 2 other shows that I have to do right after this. So hopefully things will work out. But besides all of that, how's everything with you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, ORRA, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here. Everything's great. Just doing my day-to-day and in the midst of this circus that we're living in, and still seeing people that are completely clueless, and it's very surreal sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that, because it's narcoleptic, or a word that I came up with based on a word that I heard from a brother of mine, Kakam. He has this show where he calls it Transanity. So it's, it's all about the synthetic people and the madness that's going on with that. So I was like, you know what? Narc sanity, which I'm going to be doing a series on. But this is a Narcissism Series episode installment, Narcalyptic. And the reason I came up with Narcalyptic because it's a play on the word of apocalyptic. And narcoleptic is like, it's somewhat apocalyptic with the level of narcissism that's going around in the world today, especially here in the United Shenanigans of America. And the good thing for you and I is that we don't live in Los Angeles, because if we did, we'd probably be able to talk about it every single day.
Wow. Yeah. I can't imagine living in California right now, especially LA.
Have you ever been to LA?
I have, just once, San Diego once, and I've been to San Francisco a few times. It was beautiful, but I didn't feel a vibe there for myself. It didn't feel like I needed to be there, That's how I felt in San Diego. Very nice vibe, cool people. I even went to this bar where they do cover songs on a piano, and people like drop the cover song inside of the shot glass, and then the two people singing grab it and look at it and they start singing it. Thought it was pretty cool, but a lot of people tell me, oh, you would fit in very well in California. And then I thought I would, but when I was there, I was like, nah, I don't think so. Yeah. Because even though I'm a confident guy and stuff, the level of confidence in California is very narcissistic type of confidence, which is... It's the superficial, right?
Yeah, it's kind of grandiose.
Yeah.
It's, and of course, there's some nice people out in California, but the whole entire vibe. What was the vibe that you got from Los Angeles when you was over there? Because I've never been to Los Angeles. I've been to San Diego.
I think San Diego was prettier than Los Angeles. It wasn't as grand as I thought it was. I don't know. It just was... It didn't really leave much of an impression on me, but I just remember thinking, it's cool that I'm here, but I wouldn't want to stay here. That's
right.
It just didn't match my vibe. I'm definitely probably more East Coast.
Now, have you dealt with narcissism in Florida?
And tell me your definition of narcissism. Like, what is your...
I'm glad you asked. Why don't we look it up? Because I'm going to give you the actual definition, because... Okay. If I give you my definition, we'll be here for about a week. If I explain to you the definition of narcissism and my experiences. But narcissism, it's a noun. It's excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. Selfishness involving a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, and a need for admiration as characterizing a personality type. Self-centeredness arising from failure to distinguish the self from external objects, either in very young babies or as a feature of mental disorder. What are the 9 traits of narcissism? Sense of self-importance, preoccupation with power, beauty, or success, entitled, can only be around people who are important or special, interpersonally exploitative for their own gain. That's a huge one. Arrogant, lack of empathy, must be admired. That's, in a nutshell, what a lot of narcissism is. And then it fits a spectrum of personality types. So it says that a disorder in which a person has an inflated sense of self-importance. Narcissistic personality disorder is found more commonly in men. The cause is unknown, but likely involves a combination of genetic and environmental factors. Symptoms include an excessive need for admiration, disregard for others' feelings, an inability to handle any criticism, and a sense of entitlement. That is a very key paragraph right there. The disorder needs to be diagnosed by a professional. Treatment involves talk therapy, but the talk therapy really doesn't work for most. So basically, like, Lynn, I can tell you this, that a narcissist is a person who's experienced trauma like you and I have, like most people have. But unlike you and I, they never got a chance or never took the opportunity to resolve the trauma that they experience in a positive way, to overcome it and move on with their life and gain understanding from it that can give them a more sense of empathy moving forward. So what narcissists do is they have a deep, and I mean, I'm talking about deep like the abyss sense of insecurity. And because of that trauma that they experience from the sense of insecurity that they now have built up, they're on attack mode. Their whole thing is to seek and destroy and to gain from what they destroy. So they take the energy from what they're seeking and then gain it and then try to destroy that very thing that they got the energy from. And the more that they do that, the more they feel better and complete about themselves. But it still stems from a deep sense of insecurity. So they're just lying to themselves. And I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, but part of it, I was like, okay, so that's about half the world population that you were talking, like some of it. And I guess it's like another form of addiction.
Yes. And what they are is they're addicted to validation.
From external.
Yes.
External pieces.
Yeah, because they don't feel good about themselves. But they do some of the most wicked shit that you can possibly imagine to people, especially when they're in relationships like marriages or boyfriend and girlfriend. They will do if they're your partner, they will do you dirty. They'll cheat on you. That's a big thing with them. They're cheaters. They'll sleep with multiple people and not have a care in the world about it. They just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. What else? They have this grandiose sense of self where they really think they're more important than they really are. And the third one too that's really big is that they can't take constructive criticism or counsel. So anything that you try to tell them that's going to help them to improve their lives, they're just like, oh, whatever. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, and usually they blame the other person. They turn it around and it's always that person's fault. And they're good at talking because they make you think you have the problem when you're done.
That is called gaslighting.
Yeah.
So yeah, have you experienced any of that type of behavior here in Florida?
A little bit. Yeah. In fact, there was probably one I was working with in the truth movement who kind of screwed me over a little bit. And,
right.
So I've seen it. I can't say overall. I mean, I don't know. Maybe my vibe is getting better because I feel like I'm lining up with better people. Of course, my circle has become a lot smaller too. I lost a lot of people after the lockdowns because they all thought I was nuts and they didn't want anything to do with me. And I wouldn't stop speaking the truth.
That's God working through you though. You know that, right? That's God filling up your spirit with that Holy Spirit of understanding of what's going on.
I mean, it was of course, I could not talk about it. I didn't care what I lost. I thought, if I don't speak up, we're going to lose everything.
Right. See, now this is what I'm about to tell you right now. This is what's crazy. What I just read before, it says it's more likely in men, right? It's been like that for centuries. But now in this microwave, modern technology age, social media age, blah, 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 the increase in women being narcissistic is overwhelming statistically. So before it used to be like, I think the numbers were like 1 out of every 5 women. Now it's more like 3 out of 5 women are narcissistic, which is insane.
I was going to say maybe it was higher in men too, because men aren't allowed to be emotional or in touch with their emotions. And I think anytime you're not allowed to be in touch with your emotions, it causes all kinds of havoc. Lynn,
let's give you a round of applause for that, because that's some great insight. Did you just figure that out? Because it's very true. Exactly for that reason. So let's give Lynn a round of applause. No, you're right. You're right. And a lot of people are trying to break that now, and which is good. A lot of men are educating younger men to be in tune with their emotions. Doesn't make you weak. It actually strengthens you.
Your emotions are your power. That's your PowerPoint.
Right. It doesn't mean you're a pussy if you cry. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that. It means that you are in touch with your emotions and you have empathy. You feel things. You can feel the pain of others. Narcissists, they can't feel the pain of others because they're so egoically driven. They don't give a shit about your feelings at all. It doesn't mean anything to them. The only time your feelings matter is when it has something to do with they're trying to gain from you. So they'll be empathetic, but it's a freaking Oscar-winning performance. You know, I've talked about it many times with my ex where she made it seem like she gave a shit, but it was only to lure me in to make me start giving a shit again. And then once I caught on to it, I played the game and then I just hit her with the bomb at the end. Like, nah, not happening, you know? And they hate it. They're like, reason why I call it narcoleptic too is because we are in the days of revelations. We are in these end times that the Bible talks about. And in these end times, wickedness is rising. Wickedness is rising to levels that are only talked about in the days of antiquity. So it's like when you think about Sodom and Gomorrah and Babylon and all the stuff that was going on in those days, we're reenacting that, so to speak. Like those days are coming back all over again. So history is repeating itself and it's going to come to that point. I don't know if the proper word is crescendo or climactic point where everything is going to shift.
Like a critical mass. We're going to reach a critical mass and it's going to change over. That's yeah.
Right. Critical mass. Absolutely. So let's go back to what you and I discussed briefly in the pandemic. So this is a conversation I was having with someone not too long ago. I said, I want to get your thoughts on this, Lynn. I feel like when the pandemic first hit, back when we went on lockdown, especially in March of 2020, and this is what I think. I can't prove this to be true, but I feel it on an energetic level. I think we went through a time warp. I think that we went into a whole different dimension of living from the moment that this came into our existence. The moment it was introduced, it was like we were living here as a society globally. And then it was just like zoop. And we went into this like wormhole portal. And we wound up on this side. And then everything changed. And nothing's been the same. Nothing's been the same with anything. Even, especially like with this inflation thing, it's kind of like the food went from bad over here. The food wasn't that great. But then it went from being bad to being extremely unedible. Right? It's just like, oh shit, we can't even eat the food because it literally could kill us in one bite. Like that's what I feel like now. And then also too, people, like you really got to see how people really are not who they think they are, who they say they are. They're really just full of shit. And you got to see that. I got to see that a lot with my family. I got to see with my family, like, you're full of shit. Like, I love you, but I need to love you at a distance. Like, I can't even be around you anymore. And I know you went through that too. So what do you think about what I just brought up right now? About that whole time warp?
You're 100% on. In fact, my son and I call it BC, before COVID. Oh, what was before it hit? Like we all kind of still mourn what our lives were because him and our lives were so turned upside down. It was like the first 3 years in Miami and the second 3 years in Miami were night and day, and not in a good way. You know, it was really we lost everything we built, and it's still been a challenge for me to get back. You know, I've been scrambling to get back to a new plan because it just kind of wiped out everything I did, wiped out all the people. And we call it BC because we'll see a picture. Like if like a memory comes up on Facebook and it'll say like January of 2020. I'm like, oh, BC. We didn't know it was coming, did we? You know, like that's how we still feel when we see that.
Right.
It's crazy. And I went through, when you're talking about family, I had already did a major purge when I went from Delaware to Miami, like, because I really needed to purge myself of my whole life before. And that was still necessary. Like, I look at that and like, that was definitely necessary for me. I wouldn't change that. And then those first 3 years in Miami, my heart was so full. Like, it really gave me what I was looking for. Like, it was bigger than I could have imagined. But then I lost, it just got wiped out. Like, it's just so surreal, like, thinking about it. And then I observe people and I'm like, some of these people it's like they never went through anything. Like, life just kept going on, like nothing happened.
Right.
And I think, how the hell? Like, I don't get it. I knew from the minute they locked us down, I was freaking the freak out because I'm like, oh my God, the New World Order is here. Like, we are screwed. Like, concentration camps are next. And I can't believe everybody is okay with this. That's how I felt. Like, the first 6 weeks, I was really like crying. Like, what did I bring my son into this world? I can't believe this is happening. I'm like, this is Nazism all over again. And then when I realized, I believe that there was a good plan in place. I felt like Trump was trying to do the right thing because I thought even he was bad. I thought they're all part of it. I felt better. I found some truthers online, people who were fighting for freedom. I had to find my freedom fighters online because everybody I was around were communists. I call them the commies. So they're all happy with their little socialistic, communistic losing their freedom. They can have it.
And it makes you wonder, right, Lynn? Do we even need concentration camps with the way people are? It's like,
I know.
What's the purpose of even having a concentration camp when
they're just conforming?
Yeah, they're just conforming. So it's like the powers that shouldn't be can save themselves a lot of money because the concentration camp mindset is already here. There's concentration camps as we're speaking all over this world, and then especially in this country. It's just like one thing that I was thinking about last week. I wanted to binge watch some documentaries that I haven't been able to watch, and sometimes I like to watch sports documentaries. So I'm watching all these different sports documentaries on ESPN. On the 30 for 30, which I love. I love the whole 30 for 30 breakdowns. So as I'm watching it, my intuition kicks in and I'm like, when you see how people react to sports and how much they are into it, and it's very tribal and it's very narcissistic to a certain degree because it's like my team is better than yours. And it's like people really believe that this is their team. Like, you know, I used to think that the New York Giants was my team, you know? It's like I'm wearing their jersey. It's like that's my team. And it's like, it's not my freaking team. Like, but in my mind, you believe that. And I was looking at all these different documentaries and, you know, from 1996, 1980 something, 2002, whatever. And I'm like, thinking about what you just said. And I'm like, post-pandemic, or BC, or post BC, or after BC, what would be a good word? AC? After COVID?
After COVID.
So post AC, I'm like, you kind of looking at people, because I was kind of doing like a timeline, and I'm like, I'm starting to see people kind of like automatons. Like they're like literally brainwashed robots. You made mention to it that nothing's changed with them. It's just like another day, to where when the pandemic came, people were just like looking at their watches and like, when's this going to be over? Are we there yet? You know? So I could just go back to living my meaningless lifestyle that's filled with a lot of just egoic temporary sensations that make me feel good about myself, that really serves no purpose. I'm just here taking up space, trying to get one sensation from the next, one addiction to the next, to basically feel good about myself with no real empathy or care for what's happening in the world or how the world is being destroyed. As long as I get to have fun, that's all that matters.
Bread and circus. They
That's
just
right.
need bread and circus.
So the bread and circus is why I call it's narcoleptic. It's narcoleptic because you have a steady rise of narcissism within people, which is a steady rise of that wicked behavior. And people, I've had people tell me, oh, I'm not, what is he saying? I'm wicked because I like to live my life to the fullest. And it's like, yes, because people are so self-absorbed. And I was just having this conversation with a brother yesterday on the Council on Christ Relations. It's like, Christ even talked about it. It's like, if you're not serving God, if you don't have God on your mind, if you don't have that Holy Spirit filling you up, then what are you filling yourself up with? And it's Satan. It's the way of the world. It's that self-fulfilling desire that whatever I think feels good, whatever I think is right with me. Speaking of that, what do you think about this push for pedophilia? And the push for pedophilia through transgenderism, where these kids now people are getting locked up, parents. So put it like this. You're a single mom, and you probably raised your child, you're raising your son better than most people in the world, honestly. And I'm not, saying that to gas you up. I really mean that based on our past discussion. You're raising your child you're like in the 1 percentile of how you should raise your child. You're in the top tier. What if your son was like, Mom, I want to be a girl? Said, Mommy, I'm going to be a girl. How old is your son now? He's what, 18?
He'll be 17 in June.
So imagine he comes up to you tomorrow. Says, Mom, you know what? I think I want to become a girl. I'm going to go get some hormone treatments today. And I don't even need you to sign off on it. I'm just going to do it. I just wanted to let you know. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But what if it did? Just for hypothetical purposes, like that alone, and your son being 17 or going to be 17, that's a little different than him being 7 years old. But it's still bad. So what do you think about the whole push for puberty blockers? And this stems back to it's narcoleptic. This is apocalyptic narcoleptic. Your child knows better than you. That's what this government is saying. Your child knows what's best. But they still can't.
It's like the first time in history ever. Like we don't want them to drink. We don't want them to. They have to do what they're told in school. They have to be told. They're told to do everything, be every which way. And now all of a sudden, they can decide if they're a boy or a girl. It's just weird. So you have to realize, like even before, BC, my eyes were opened in 1993 when I discovered chiropractic, right? Like, okay, there's another way. Thank God, because I was like, where the hell am I living up till that point? Up till I was 19 years old, I'm like, this is effed up, what we call life. I hate it. I don't want to be here. And I don't mean to sound depressing, but I just thought, I don't vibe here. Like what we call life, this sucks. Like how are people, they like to go to school? Is this horrible? They like to work all day. This is horrible. And they still don't have enough. What am I watching? So I came in wired like that anyway. So when I found chiropractic, it showed me all the medical corruption besides what was done to me. So I had to sit on the sidelines as a chiropractor and watch people already choose things that they're doing to their health because they're told by their medical world that I knew were killing them. But I just it was their choice. I could tell them, but they didn't want to hear it. So I had to sit back and accept that if they ask, I have to tell, I had to almost like be respectful of someone's journey. Then it got to the place where I saw this transgender stuff and I was like, oh my God, now we really are losing it. I'm like, these kids are so brain dead from being in school. They don't even know what else to get involved in. Now they're questioning their gender. I didn't understand the whole big agenda at this point. Like I was piecing this together and I thought, School's numbing them out so bad that they're looking for purpose in their lives. So now they want to find their purpose or tribe with these transgenders and all the alphabet letters, right? That's what I thought it was. And I thought if they really knew who they were, God's source within, that they could have anything they want. They could, we're here to create our own reality, live in joy, live in bliss. But that's not what society tells us. They put us in a prison box. So their way out is looking for purpose. And they find their tribe with this transgender movement, which is heinous. And then they want to mutilate themselves. Okay, so I always look at it from a natural, like, what is your body trying to do? Natural state. So even when I make a decision, I'm like, do I want medical intervention? No. Like, what is my body trying to do? Can you imagine what hormones, like hormone blockers and all that? I mean, I don't even like when women are doing fertility treatments. I think that's heinous too. I'm like, I want to say, do you really think you're supposed to be a mother that bad? Maybe you're not getting pregnant for a reason. Maybe you need to clean up your act first before you need to bring a child into the world, but that's a whole nother topic. So I don't like that either. So I always look at natural. If it's not happening naturally, you're missing a message. You know what I'm saying? Okay, maybe you identify, maybe your last life was a girl and now you're a boy. Well, maybe you chose to come in as a boy, if you believe that. Make it work. Like, if you were tapped into your bigger picture, you don't care what your damn genitalia are. Like, you're not, like, I never had thoughts of me being a woman, like, in the sense of that it defined me. I am who I am. I'm a person. You know, I don't even, like, I hear the women who are like, oh, I'm a single mom. It's so hard. No, it's not. I hate that. Like, that's victimhood to me. So this whole transgenders, it's so sick what's happening right now. And I still see, I'm connected to the Miami Beach. There's this private Facebook group, The Hub, which I never go in there anymore because it was already toxic. Because it's a liberal mess. And even before I realized they were liberal, like, it's just toxic people. Well, I already see them bashing our state rep, calling him out like this feminist woman, like she's a Democrat, like dark, calling out like he voted against women, kids being able to choose to change that. And I'm like, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe what we've lived in the last 3 years, and people are still harping on the gay rights, the transgenderism. I'm like, they gotta be sick in the head. And you know what? The freaking homosexual, I have met so many hypocrites. I walked in their pride parade in South Beach. You know, I'm about equal rights for everybody. If that's how you choose to live as a homosexual, go ahead. Everybody should be treated like people.
Right.
But all of a sudden now, when we locked down, they were for the lockdowns. I'm like, oh, okay, so you want your rights when you want them, but now you're voting for our whole humanity is losing freedom. And the people, the puppeteers who are telling you that they're for you, they don't care about you. They don't care about the kids. They don't care about the homosexual people. They don't care about their rights. They're using them as ploys. They're stupid. They're using them as tools to divide our society. Because really, I think society all wants the same thing. We all want equal rights, freedom, and living a good life. But they're using these agendas strategically to divide us, to look like we are prejudiced, like we're racist, we're all this stuff. It's so insane. So this transgenderism, to me, is next level crazy. And to think that kids can make that choice to be who they want to be and change themselves permanently, biologically, before 18 is sick.
It's narcoleptic. What they're doing, you see, a lot of the alphabet gang, if not pretty much all of them, most of them, I shouldn't say all of them, most of them are rooted in narcissism, because that whole thing where I want you to call me they or them, that's narcissism. It's like, you have to accept me the way I want you to accept me. But whatever you think doesn't matter. So there's that lack of empathy, because they're looking at you like whatever you believe to be true to you as a heterosexual man or woman, it means shit to me. You're wrong. You're an asshole. You're this. And they're very aggressive about it too. So that goes back to when you were saying about them changing themselves biologically. In actuality, they're not changing shit. what they're doing is that they're giving the illusion of change. But biologically, they're still a man. You're not a woman. There's, I wish I could share this clip, but I'm not going to share it from TikTok because I'll probably get flagged for it. But there's this tranny, or should I say this synthetic person, that's a man, okay? Just a man. And he's like, honey, I get a period. He's like, transgenders get periods. I get my period. I have a cycle. And it's like, this is a man with broad ass shoulders, a mustache. Okay, has all this, makeup on and got the different color rainbow hair, but literally trying to make an argument on camera that he gets a period. And it's like, this is where the narcissism kicks in, because most of the people, see, narcissism is a personality disorder. It's a mental disorder. It's a mental disorder that stems from severe trauma that the person didn't handle well, that went the opposite direction on how you're supposed to deal with trauma, because we all experience some form of trauma. Even somebody that's raised up in a positive household is going to go through trauma, maybe not in that household, but outside of the household, because we live in a toxic environment. So, like for me, example, right? I'll give you an example about me. Technically, if I was a piece of shit and I didn't handle my trauma properly, as an adult, I would hate black and brown people. I would think black and brown people are the biggest piece of shits of the world. Why? Because the people that have done me the most dirty have been so-called black and brown people. I'm just using that for understanding purposes of how people see the world and how we've been conditioned socially. That's what I should be thinking right now. And I should be thinking that white people are the best thing since sliced bread, because white people have treated me a lot nicer and much better than any black or brown person in my 45 years. So technically, I should be racist against my own people, but I'm not. I don't hate my own people because I have an understanding that that's just the environment that I was exposed to, and it goes really deeper too on a spiritual level. But that's what the thing with narcissism is, that somebody that doesn't handle the trauma that they experience at a young age will hold on to that and be hateful and spiteful, and then look for the validation in that hate and spitefulness and not see anything wrong with it. Think that they're perfectly fine. They don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. And they'll go to great lengths, like what in that movie Revolver, where it says the ego will fight to the very death to defend itself. And that's how narcissists are. Their egos are going to fight you to the death. And that's literal. To the death. They will fight. That's just like how these transgenders are. Yeah. They are ready to go to war.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, be careful what you ask for, because when heterosexual people are fed up, especially when you tell a heterosexual man in the South that you're coming after his kids, best believe you're going to get some holes in you.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. So I know that that's eventually going to happen, that the civil unrest with all of this demonic behavior this is being spread around, especially with this. I was just talking about it yesterday with brother about the Obama administration set the stage for a lot of shit that's happening right now.
Yep.
And we talked about they used a so-called melanated man, a blackface, to lure people in and get them all emotional. Like, it's like, we got the first black president. This is historical. And it was like, he was one of the most gayest presidents ever. Yeah. A lot of presidents are gay. A lot of people don't want to believe that, but a lot of them are bisexual. One of the only ones that
wouldn't be there. I hate to say it. That's why they're in there. They're all part of an elite pedophilia ring. That's
right. One of the only ones that I can honestly say that wasn't on some gay shit was Nixon. He didn't like that shit. He didn't want to go to Bohemian Grove or anything like that. He hated it. And of course, he got impeached or whatever.
We'll see what happened to him. And then we know they got rid of Kennedy too, because they didn't like that he was going to expose it.
Yeah, he was. Kennedy was going to do so many different things, especially with the economy. They was just going to transform this country. Same thing that Gaddafi was going to do for.
That's right. They
South
were going to
Africa.
do gold-backed currency. If they did gold-backed currency, you get rid of the central banks, and that destroys their power.
Exactly, and that's why they took him out. That's one of the main reasons they took him out. But this thing with the Alphabet Gang is getting so out of hand. But to see this administration, what I was going to say about the administration is, have you just noticed that what has been 3 years now, Lynn, that Biden has been in office?
No,
look at how much.
2 years.
Really?
Yeah,
it's only been 2 years. It feels like 3.
This is the 3rd year.
Okay,
but what's in April? So
look at how much damage that his administration has been able to create, to cause in such a short period of time.
Well, all right. Well, let's go back. Trump, it was already on this spin for years. For the last 50 years, we were heading down this way.
Right.
Things were bad before Trump came in. Trump just tried to dam up what was coming. Like it was like an avalanche was flowing at us. But Trump started to push it in another direction. He only had 4 years, and then they were trying to scam him with the Russia hoax and all this stuff. So he had a million things to clean up. So Biden just picked up where Obama left off. So that's why it went so fast. Everything was in line. They've been trying to do this for years, but it's reaching a critical mass of the point of no return. I can't believe we're still hanging on, like that the economy hasn't busted. Like I remember what happened in 2008, and now I'm aware. I didn't understand why that happened, and I got caught in that with real estate investment.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
So now I can't believe I can't believe we're still hanging on. Like, I still can't believe everybody's living normal like nothing's going on. And I can't believe this something hasn't popped yet. That's what's blowing my mind.
Well, really, Lynn, is that search for the sensations. It's like it's in the addiction. We live in an addiction culture now where it's like on a subconscious level, people know that things are messed up. But because it's such a narcoleptic world, it's becoming very narcoleptic. People are just like, I just want to feel good. I just want to feel good. I want to get my orgasmic feeling as much as I can before I go. That's where people are at right now. They want to get that sensation of euphoria artificially, wherever they can get it.
Right.
Especially think about it with the foods. Most of the foods that are out there is putting us on an energetic level that's at a low vibration. So we're going to be seeking low vibration energy wherever we go, because that's what we're attracting. And that's where it's becoming very narcoleptic, because it's like most people are not putting in the going through the process of self-evaluation like you have. They're just not going to do that. They're like, that's too much work. It's like, why do I want to go down the path of most resistance when the path of least resistance, which is the left, is so much easier?
But see, I have a hard time understanding that, because for me, it was so much harder to live in that world.
And I understand exactly where you're coming from, but for most people, it's quite the opposite.
I know. And I try to understand that. My brain has a hard time understanding that viewpoint. But it explains what I see and my frustration. So I had to learn to live and let live. But that's the whole point. After BC or, AC, I wasn't allowed to live I wasn't allowed to be left alone and live my life anymore and make my choices because of these crazy sheeple. Like, everybody's conforming, and I'm like, now I'm losing my freedom. That's what made me step back into and kind of be in more of a warrior mode and speaking up. It's in such a passionate way. Because before, I was reading David Icke because I was trying to understand the economy. I just wanted to understand. I was just working on my energy, of money flow. I wanted to understand if I had to make investments. I never felt comfortable just giving my money to a broker. I wanted to understand why the cycles, busts and booms. And that's why I was studying. That's why I read The Creature from Jekyll Island about the Federal Reserve and the corruption. It led me to understand gold and silver, cryptocurrency, all this kind of stuff. But And I got to David Icke, and he explains the pedophilia ring and the other things are hiding from us, otherworldly and all this. And I'm like, okay, that's possible. But why do I need to focus on that if I can't change it? I don't want to focus on negative. I just want to focus on how I can better my life so I can make better choices for my money, my health, my son. You know what I mean? But when they took away my rights, when they locked in the pandemic, then I knew, I'm like, it's time to start, I don't know, speaking up again. I kind of went through a speaking up before, and I thought, this is kind of pointless. Most people don't want to hear what I have to say, which shocked me back in the 90s. Shocked me. I had to really, it took me a while to make peace with it. So when this happened again, it was like I was reliving. I'm like, oh, here we go again. But now I'm being threatened. That's how I, see it.
Well, one thing about you is that you were able to look into the mirror and also to look into the mirror honestly. That's what most people don't want to do. When they look into a mirror, their mind goes to their imagination on what they want, what they think they want to see, and they'll create that image in the mirror while they're looking in the mirror, where the ones that are honest with themselves see exactly what they're looking at and deal with that, with the person in the mirror. Something you also said about you didn't feel comfortable here. You're like, this place sucks. That's how I felt as a kid. And then as a teenager, I felt it a little bit more. But when I got into my 20s, I was like, this shit is whack, especially when it came to racism. When it came to racism, as a kid, I didn't understand that shit for nothing. It made no sense to me. I said, people are getting worked up like this over skin complexion when we all got hearts and minds,
Right.
and we all have to breathe the same air. We all bleed. You know what I mean? I'm like, we're all having a human experience. So what the hell does skin complexion matter? And that's when you start to see the insanity of it all from a spiritual perspective, because you're like, all of this is bullshit. And it's all being accelerated and people gravitate to it. People actually believe that they are colors in a crayon box.
Right.
And not truly seeing everybody for what they really are, which is a human experience, really a spiritual experience, but in human form being embodied here temporarily. They're not seeing the spirit. And part of it is not even really their fault because we're not being educated on that. We're being educated to look at each other as separate from each other.
Well, they're educating the kids to look at their skin color and their gender. I mean, this is what we've come to.
Right.
It almost takes my breath away. How crazy. I mean, there's a couple of things that came up. I'm thinking of my son before in BC, he would say, he was on the internet and he goes, I think even though he's half Dominican, but he looks very white. I guess he says, I feel like I am being prejudiced against because I'm a white male. And I said to him, oh, don't buy into the crap. That crap's been around forever. The feminist stuff, the racist stuff. I'm like, they have their groups. That's where they find their purpose, but just, you don't have to live there. AC, I tell him, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was how strong the agenda, and it's an actual agenda. It's not just a group that formed and had an opinion. This is being puppeteered. So you picked up on that. The second thing was he's always been homeschooled, but I always gave him choice. He decided to go to school. And when he was in school for that year and a half in third grade, he would come back with math. And it was just basic math, adding and subtracting. And it would be like, explain why 2 + 2 is whatever it is. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? I'm like, he's not learning how to add these numbers together. This is weird. And then I saw that they took out the cursive. So I'm like, well, how do you sign your name? Because I was working on cursive with him before he went. And I'm thinking, that's weird. I'm like, this is weird. I'm like, okay, this has proven to me that you really don't need school. I already think you don't need school. It does you no good except destroys your psyche. But now I'm like, this is next level. And I didn't realize that's the communist stuff. It was Common Core. That was part of the New World Order agenda. And of course, don't sign your name because you're not going to own anything and be happy. I mean, it all fits in. And this was 2014 when he was, that takes my breath away to see that. To think about how these steps have been in place to to guide society right into living in one big concentration camp, and they're happy.
And it also leads to like how the alphabet gang, their lifestyle, what you just talked about, the way they're educating when they got rid of cursive. If you think about it from a very deep perspective, a deep level of introspection, you would look at it and say, you know what, they're dumbing us down, which is quite obvious, right? But I look at it like this serves for depopulation, because the more dumbed down you are, the more useless you are as a human being.
That's right.
So it's like the way they look at us as cattle, but we're actually becoming dumber than animals, because animals to me are a lot smarter than human beings because they follow the natural order of life through God. So animals are, my dog is a lot smarter than most people I've met. My dog is very intuitive.
Yeah.
He understands. Like I have conversations with my dog. He's not talking back to me, but I could say anything to this dog.
He knows.
Anything. And he understands it.
100%. I believe that.
I don't have to teach it to him. I'm like, you know what? Go drink your water. You're thirsty. He goes, drinks his water. You know? Or sometimes when he's looking at me, I'm like, hey, why are you looking at me like that? You know? Or sometimes when I'm eating, I'm like, can you stop looking at me? And then he'll turn his head. And he'll be like,
That's amazing.
I really want some of that food, but I'm going to respect your space and I'm going to look over here. He does it. I didn't train him to do this. I just been telling him since he was 5 weeks old what to do and what not to do, and doing it in like if I was teaching a child, a human child, and just in conversation, and he just understands it. It's quite amazing.
That is amazing. No, and I believe that because I think animals are very intuitive. And if you want to get your vibe back on, just go hang out with some animals, you know?
Right. Like even like yesterday, there was this lady walking and he stops because he's looking at me like this lady's going to pet me. So I'm going to wait here. And I kept trying to pull him, but he's so strong. He's like 92 pounds and he's all muscle. So I'm like, I'm trying to pull him and I'm like, he's just looking at me like counting down. And then the lady's like, oh. And she's just coming by him and starts petting him. And then he just like comes up to her and moves his body and like gives her places to where to scratch.
Right.
And then she starts scratching him there. And he's just looking at me like, this is why I stayed here. And I looked at the lady. I said, he knew you was going to pet him. He just knew it from a distance. And then she started laughing. And then she walks away. And then he just starts walking again in the direction we're supposed to go in. And I was like,
so smart.
Yeah. The thing is, too, that's another thing. Well, speaking about the animals, the destruction with the ecosystem. Matter of fact, speaking on that, what do you think about these derailments and all of this toxic fumes that are going up in the air? Because in Ohio, it's bad. It's bad. A lot of those people had to evacuate and some of them can't. So they're actually getting sick. There's people that are getting all these different types of rashes on their body and skin conditions.
Trying to clear the poison.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Because we have one here in Florida, right? We have these explosions at the plastic plants.
They wanna disrupt the supply chain so that they can come in and fix it. They always create the problem so government can come in to fix it and look like the savior. So people keep asking for more government. But if you get to the bottom line, too much government has caused all our problems. This is why we're in this shit show that we're living in right now.
Right.
But people keep screaming for government to fix it. We need more government. We need more, because these people are so victimized. That's the whole thing with socialism. They think they can't take care of themselves, that Big Brother's got to come in and fix it for them. It goes against every natural law. But I think it's another false flag. They're doing it on purpose because they want to disrupt this and they want to cause the havoc.
Well,
it creates fear, supply chain issues, toxins in the air. It's all part of their depopulation agenda.
Right. Let me put you on to something that you may or may not know. You know how we had the pandemic, right? So for them to do a second pandemic, it's going to be kind of hard, considering that most people have made it very clear. Even the people that are dumbed down are like, I'm not going to conform to this again because I don't like it. and I'm just not going to do it again. Especially business owners, right? They're like, I'm not locking down. You're going to have to lock me up, or I'm going to fight for this. So the reason why they're filling up the air, you've seen the movie Hunger Games.
I haven't seen it. I couldn't watch something like that. It would upset me.
Okay, gotcha. Have you ever seen In Time?
I know of it. I mean, I know what we're living is basically what's in the Hunger Games. Because
have you ever seen that Justin Timberlake movie where they got the time on their arms and they run out of time? Okay. So the reason I bring up those two movies, and in regards to the chemical leaks and the toxic fumes that are going in the air, because what they're planning around the globe is these initiatives for a green environment. So what they're going to start doing, you've heard about the smart cities, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So what they want to do is they want to consolidate people into these smart cities. Well, what better way to do it that if certain areas of the land are inhabitable due to the toxic air?
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. And I'll tell you, it's hard. I was at a meeting in Miami, and they're trying to do the smart city going south of Miami, all south Miami-Dade County. And it looks really, I see how elusive it is, because it can be very easily translated into, if we weren't aware of the agenda, how easy it is. It's going to make traffic better. Everybody's going to be connected to this road. Everybody, technology is going to be smoother. It's a smart city, right? Everything's going to be like upgraded. But that's how they come in. That means the government owns all the land. They have control of the grid.
Right.
You see? And people don't have power over where they live anymore. But they don't say it like that. It's very, and this is, I've been really, because I've been involved in the county, I see how things are working. Can I share an experience I had with
Please do.
the Republican Party? So I'm not a party person. I think they're corrupt on both sides. Republicans and Democrats, they're both
all
shit.
Of it.
I was independent my whole life. I, on some level, knew that the elections were rigged. I kind of did it as I used to at least go vote for the president, because I thought, I don't know, I already felt like an outcast of society. I didn't do anything. And I thought, let me at least try to, what could it hurt? I thought it was rigged, not to the level of evil that it is. So that really didn't shock me. So now I'm like, I saw the one strategy is that Republicans, we got more, because of Trump, we have people who are more America first now, constitutional conscious, you know what I mean, waking up. But we can't go in as a third party, because you get nowhere, right? Everybody who's been independent, you get overshadowed by because the two parties are so big. So we have to infiltrate the Republican side. That's basically what Trump did. That's why he chose one side. So there's a group of us who've been working on election integrity. Then we decided we need to get into the Republican Executive Committee, which is members of each district in the county that represent our district. They meet like every other month. So I got in as my rep for Miami Beach, and I went to the meeting in March, and we were just asking. There was a group of us, the most of us who are like aware of the agenda. And then we call them the rhinos, the establishment Republicans. We were just asking, can we see a list of what, they will never give us a list, which is kind of weird, right? They won't give us a list to see what districts in Miami-Dade County have open seats so that we can bring in people. Isn't normal, like Republicans, isn't it normal that you want to recruit people to your party?
Right.
Well, they don't want to show us the list of what seats are available. And this has been an ongoing issue. So we finally had it to the critical mass where we wanted to vote on getting this list and asking, why haven't you given us the list? We're not asking a lot. Half the room got up and walked out. And I didn't understand what was happening. They walked out, and I thought, well, it was kind of towards the end of the night. I'm like, maybe they had to leave, but it was like, I could see a deliberate got up, but people were leaving before, got up and walked out. And then when we adjourned the meeting, I went outside. They were all standing outside the door of the ballroom. They didn't leave for the night. And I go, what the freak is happening? Because they're the establishment. They don't want us to have the list because they want to control who goes into their little REC group, because they want to control everything. Like, it's about control. So I was like, wow. And it's funny. One of the guys who runs it, who walked out, I considered a friend. I mean, I thought he was you got to watch the people people who've been in politics too long because something's off. They've been in there too long. They don't really see the agenda for what it is. So, and I heard he got vaccinated, which I find that's weird. But I saw him get up and walk out, and I'm like, wow, like I trusted him. Like, I kind of knew what his background, but I thought he was doing the right thing. And I saw him get up and walk out, and it took my breath away because I thought, this is how the evil works. They're nice to your, well, I guess this is the narcissism, right? They're nice
That's
to your
what I was
face.
just going to say.
They think they're doing the right thing. Or you think they're doing the right thing. Like, that's the people who are brainwashed still. They think government's trying to help them. They can't see the evil right in front of their face because it's feeding them. It's keeping their lights on. It's keeping, you know what I mean? Like, their world's still good. They don't want to disrupt their world. And it really, when you're up close to experience something, and it's so subtle, like that's a subtle thing, but you have to understand that compounds over time, over years, in multiple places in our society. This is how they've destroyed us and are destroying us. And I'm like, wow, I was this close. This is how I really got to see it up close and personal. And it's just unbelievable.
Right. Well, those rhinos, when you said they want the control, that's the narcissism. It's a collective. That's why this show is called Narcalyptic, because narcissism is coming to narcoleptic proportions where it's intensifying. That group walkout and them standing outside the door, as insane as it is, that's the way the world operates. People want to be in control. And the reason why they did that is because if you and your counterparts get that list and you see the available slots, what are y'all going to do? You're going to start recruiting people that think like you. That's just the natural way it's going to be. So they're like, fuck, I don't want another Lynn Carey up in here. It's bad enough we got her in here. Well, do I want another 2 or 3 of her in here? No. So what am I going to do? And this is the thing that I forgot to mention to you. Doesn't matter what age. You could be in your 30s. You could be in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Narcissistic people act like children. I've seen it. They go into temper tantrums like children that are in the supermarket, that when they can't get their favorite cereal or toy, they go on the floor and they're like, ah! That's exactly how they act. What they did that day where they walked out and stand out the door, that is childlike behavior. That's exactly what they did. It was like a group narcissistic action that they all synchronistically took a part of and probably didn't even really plan it, but it just instinctively of how they are because they want to maintain control. So they acted like children in an adult environment. And I've seen it so many times where you see grown adults act like little 3-year-olds.
And the crazy part is that they're calling us what they call us, the people who are causing trouble. Like at the school board, the moms who were speaking up for their kids, they call us terrorists, and the book ban. They're saying, oh, we're banning books. We're banning the pornography in the books. They don't even know what they're talking about. The don't say gay. I had to see a sign. So they had the whole Pride week this week in South Beach. And I had to see a sign that said, don't say DeSantis on the LED truck. Because they think he's saying don't say gay. It says nothing about that. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And I'm like,
yes,
I can't believe this.
Yeah.
3 years into this shit show that we're living in, these psychos are still believing what the media tells them, and they're still believing the script.
Lynn, you use the word psycho. Most narcissists have some tendencies of psychopathic or sociopathic behavior. Sometimes they intertwine with each other. Sometimes they intertwine.
All that. Okay, now you're connecting a lot of dots for me with the
because most narcissists have either sociopathic behavior or psychopathic. Those are your more malignant ones. But they the thing with narcissists too is that they will go to great lengths to get their way. And I'll just like what you were talking about, and I'm just thinking about it, like those people look at you as a threat. Just like look at how they looked at Christ. Christ was a problem. And you would be like, why is this man a problem? All he's doing is he's healing people, giving people truth and understanding, a better way of life in multiple ways. But they got to get rid of him, right? So it's no different. But I remember my ex, whatever you want to call her. I don't even like to call her my ex-wife because she really wasn't my wife. But she went as far to prove to me that she wasn't cheating on me. She went as far as faking going to work at some different facility because she was a nurse. And she went as far as going to this different facility while we're on a FaceTime and acting like she was there. She parked in front of there and she said she was on her break. She put on her nursing uniform. Then she told me that she didn't want to go back in because she had an injury from a patient that was like being rough with her, that something happened where the patient was rough, and when they try to retain him or whatever, they try to hold him down, she got hurt because he was a pretty big man and blah, blah, blah. So she's like, I need to go to the ER. And I was like, well, then go, and I'm like, what are you waiting for? And I'm like, don't you have to tell the supervisor and, like that you have to leave? And she went through this whole thing. And then she actually went to the hospital and went to the ER and admitted herself and was feeling, it was crazy. And I was like, I'm saying to myself, this is how far she's going to go to protect her lies. So think about that. Imagine if you have a group of people like that are in a community, that are in in your situation where they're sitting on a board or a party to make decisions collectively or together. How deep is that narcissism going to go? It's bad enough with one person. But when you have 10, 15 people all vibrating on that same energetic, toxic level, it's bad. And that's what the Biden administration is. It's a bunch of pedophiles and narcissists that are very demonic and evil and Satanists, and they're just wicked, all making decisions together.
But they're okay with that because it's not Trump. Trump derangement syndrome. That's a whole nother thing. Like they just want to blame somebody for their problems. So it was Trump, but they're okay with this evil.
And it's easy to blame him because he's the poster child for narcissism. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie. And the one thing about him, he's uncontrolled or seemed to be controlled. He's controlled opposition, made to look uncontrolled, but he's very much controlled. Every time he shits on the Clintons, you know what happens? He goes and hangs out with them and popping bottles and all of that.
I don't think he's part of it. I don't think so.
Oh, yes, he is.
For a while. You think so?
Lynn, if you follow David Icke, what does David Icke always say?
Like him. I know that.
David Icke says, what does David Icke say about presidents? Presidents are not elected. They are selected.
I know.
So he was selected. That's why I laugh when a lot of Republicans or these patriots, they'd be like, Trump is not with the system. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
I have to uncover it more because until I see it, I still think something's different going on though. But the thing is, it's not about Trump.
But that's the illusion. That's the illusion. They're going to play the powers that shouldn't be. And I'm talking about the people that are sitting, the people that sit in high places that you and I don't know about. The people that are in control of the world, that their money is so damn old, it goes back 10 centuries.
Oh, yeah. The 13
Those
families,
people.
So got control everything.
The 13 bloodlines. Right. So why not bring in a guy that's made to seem like a patriot and going to make everything better? Because you have to have the opposition. That's the only way you control. You have to make somebody appear to look good and then somebody look evil.
People are still putting it as an outside force is, I guess, my point. It's not about Trump. It's about getting back to, for me, because of it, I was understand if we get back to the Constitution. I mean, I don't think we should have any government. I'm anti-government, really. I'm a libertarian.
Right, exactly.
But But the Constitution's pretty cool. Like the more I study the Constitution, if we were just following the Constitution, it'd wipe out 95% of the crap that's going on.
Well, this is the thing.
They don't want us to go there.
Well,
but because of it, I feel like I was able to, see through that party politics. Because I never got involved with politics because I thought it was all a shit show and all a bunch of lies, which it is.
What I found out is that the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence wasn't even written by the founding fathers that they say wrote it.
Who wrote it?
The indigenous tribes. The indigenous tribes wrote those. So basically what they did was the founding fathers got information on how the tribes worked together so well and how they govern themselves. So what the tribes did was gave them the system of how tribally everything has its order and its place with the chiefs and the so-called Indians, and how they make decisions, how they trade, how they find peace amongst all these different tribes.
That makes sense.
Took that and put it into documentation. That's all they did. A lot of people be like, our founding fathers wrote these great No, they didn't. Because at that time, too, a lot of the people that were sent here from Europe were considered savages. They were considered the unworthy, according to the European elites.
Right.
They just sent what they did back in those days is no different than what Fidel Castro did when he sent all the Cubans over here to Miami, to Florida. It's the same shit. But people,
replaying itself.
Exactly. But you can't tell that to a patriot. It's like, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington were these great men. And Benjamin Franklin. It's like Benjamin Franklin was one of the most wickedest, evil, vile men that ever walked the face of the planet. This is a man that had bodies stuffed in the walls of his house and in the floorboards, bodies of human beings. But they want to paint them to be this great. See, the thing about Satanists and about these wicked people that I give them credit for is that they're extremely smart.
Agreed. It's genius what they have orchestrated. I mean, really, it's the biggest psyop. It really takes my breath away. How well orchestrated.
Isn't Satan? See, a lot of people think Satan is this horned figured. No, Satan is probably one of the most beautiful angels that the Most High ever created. Satan is beautiful, probably one of the most beautiful beings you'll ever witness in person. But that wickedness, and how many times have you seen people that are very good looking and they're the most ugliest people that you'll ever meet in your life? But aesthetically, they look beautiful. They're very intelligent. And that's where the freedom of will comes in, because I saw that with my stepfather growing up. I'm like, here is this brilliant guy, this very smart dude, but he uses his intelligence to deceive, to take advantage of my mother and of other people. So I got to see narcissism at a very young age. The beauty in all of it was that even though I was being raised by two narcissists, something energetically within me, spiritually, was like, I don't want to be like that. I know that that's fucked up. I know that the way I'm being treated is not the way I want to be treated. And furthermore, there was a spiritual presence in my life that was always reminding me that I'm so much more than what my stepfather would want me to believe, that I wasn't capable of doing anything great, or that I was lesser than, that I wasn't really going to amount to anything because I'm so fucked up. That was the energy that was being given to me.
So you know how you had that energy? Because I feel like I've had that too.
You did. We talked about it.
So do you not think everybody comes in this lifetime with that? I question that sometimes. I
think that what the scriptures say, where it says many are called and few are chosen, I think that's what it is. I think that many of us...
We're not chosen, or they don't choose?
I think that they don't choose, because I think that if you're created in the image of God, then we're all have a calling. But if you don't embrace the essence of who you truly are, then you're not chosen. You didn't choose to embrace God. You didn't choose to be the best version of what you were meant to be. You chose the opposite. You chose the distraction, which is Satan. Right. Satan doesn't want you to know that you come from God. He wants your soul so that you think that you're not from God. And at the end of the day, he really even can't take your soul. He can distract you from selling your soul. And then you're going to have to deal with God on that. Because God's going to be like, hey, you had a choice. You could have chose me. You chose not to deal with me. Now I'm going to deal with you based on your decisions, based on your choices. Now the choice you made, I have to make a choice. Do I want you to be here with me with that type of mindset? Or do you have to go somewhere else with that shit? And you already know what the answer is. You got to go somewhere else. It's even like when you deal with a person that is a problem and you've given them multiple opportunities. You'd be like, hey, man, I'm giving you a chance to do right. Or even at a job, the person that keeps coming late to work, the person that keeps fucking up and you keep giving them. That's why I say no more benefits for the doubt. I'm not a type of person anymore that's going to give anybody the next relationship I get into a woman. I'm not giving her no benefits of the doubts. I'm not doing that. It's either you're right or you're wrong. And if you're wrong, I want nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that wrong, if I continue to let it to persist, it's only going to get more and more wrong. And then I'm going to start to be wrong for allowing that energy to come into my life. Totally. It's one of the biggest lessons I learned in the beginning of last year. I mean, I learned that lesson in some of the most hardest ways possible, but I'm grateful I learned that lesson because it's like most of the time, and it's not all because people do repent, people do change their ways, but it's starting to become because it's so narcoleptic these days, it's very far and in between now. Where it's like nowadays, the person that gets constructive criticism doesn't want it. It's like in one ear and out the other. It's like, no, I'm going to continue being a piece of shit. I'm pretty cool with this. I don't care what you think. And that's where you have to be like, I can't deal with you no more. I'm currently in a situation like that where I gave somebody some advice and stuff like that, and they didn't want to listen to me. And, I made it very clear. I'm not going to be around this person like that. I don't care what anybody thinks. It's like, this person is not going to interrupt my peace of mind in trying to serve God. Yeah, I can have compassion at a distance. When that person's ready to get their shit together, then they can be in my presence. Because to be in my presence, you better come righteous. Because that's how I'm approaching you. And I understand that we have to be forgiving, but to what extent? Right? It's like, you don't want to listen. And because you don't want to listen, how many freaking chances I'm going to give you? I got to just keep giving you more and more chances. Well, I can give you a chance from a distance.
No, we get confused because then we think that as us putting up our boundaries or walking away is being unkind, but it's not. It's the best thing you can do at that point.
Exactly. Because we are being kind by doing that. Because I can make the choice to be just like you and try to tear you down for making me feel the way I feel when you're around me.
That's right.
But I know it's a you problem. Like my friend Billy says, it's not a you problem, it's a them problem.
Right.
So if it's a them problem, let them, and it's funny, I was like dumb with the pronouns. Let them be with them. Let them that like them. Those people that like those types of people, let them be around that type of energy and see how long they like to be around people that are just like them. And maybe then they can repent and come to the understanding that, hey, if you come to this side, you better come correct. And if you don't come correct, you better be able to take some freaking correction. Because if you can't take no fucking correction, get the fuck out of here. Period. Yep. That's my mindset now. It's like, I don't have time for the bullshit.
Absolutely. That's the best place to be. That's when you're in your power, I believe, in a divine way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like enough is enough. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you give them chances. Especially when it's like, okay, this is what's going on. Fix it. You know what I'm saying? Not for me. Fix it for yourself.
Yeah.
Fix it for the divine heavenly energy that created you to be what you were meant to be, to serve. Do it for that reason, you know? But when they don't want to listen to that, it's like, what else can you do? That's when you just got to be like, hey, keep that shit over there. You know? It's like somebody that doesn't take a bath and they're in the room with you. They're stinking up the room.
Right.
And it's like, how much can I tolerate that stench before I have to say, get the fuck out the room, like, and spray the Lysol everywhere, right?
Right.
And I'm very passionate about this. And I know some people may disagree with that, because I know some people are like, oh, you got to give them a chance. It's like, well, how many fucking chances are they going to get?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, there's a point where there's no more chances.
Exactly. Because I know for me, there's people that are waiting for me to fuck up. That's how it's been all my life. People just wait for any little error that I make. So they'd be like, oh, look at you. You're a piece of shit. It's like, and they're just waiting for that. And because I've experienced that so much in my life, I'm just like, no. Especially those types of people, I'm like, no. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to have compassion for you, but it's going to be at a distance. Because if you get too close to me, I'm going to wind up having to hurt you. I'm going to have to do something that's going to take me out of that positive, energetic level that I'm very secure with. And that's what matters to me. My whole thing right now is to serve the Most High, period. How can I be the best version of what the Most High wants me to be so that those fruits of the Spirit can come out to me on exponential levels? If there's something that disrupts that, it doesn't mean that it's wicked, but it also means that it can't exist within this environment because the energetic level that it's vibrating on doesn't match.
And I was just going to say, that's beautifully said. That's the only way we can shift this shit show we're living in, is by all of us raising our consciousness and getting in alignment with our source. But we have to do the inner work on ourselves. That's what we're talking about. But that's the core of everything, right. That has to happen. And hopefully when we raise our own vibration, then we don't attract, or we're less exposed to people who aren't doing that. I mean, we could, and even if we are exposed to it, it doesn't bother us as much, And I do believe on some level, because I don't see how this is all going to work unless it just has a massive shift. I feel like we are kind of in two parallel realities right now. I mean, the divide is so strong. It's almost like we're going to a new way of life, and these other people are going to be left behind. And I'm ready to leave them behind. So I'm done. I'm done playing this game, but I'm thinking, but we have to get to a point where they're either not bothering us anymore, or we shift the whole thing.
And that's what the scriptures talks about. That's why it's so important to be in the way, in the life of how Christ was, because that's how you shift yourself. That's why when the scriptures say, I'm the way and the life, it's like, that is the way. That is the only way. There's no other way. Any other way is going to keep you left behind in that energetic shift. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. And another thing too is like, and we're going to be wrapping it up because I know we said until 11. So I want to make sure we stay within the time frame. Is that I think that people are going to have such a wake-up call when they leave their bodies, meaning when they die. And they're going to be like, holy shit. And it's going to be too late. I've done shows like that early on in seasons 1 and 2 of this network, where I'm like, they're not going to understand until it's too late. And that's the whole thing with the concentration camps that you brought up earlier. There's going to be people that when those concentration FEMA camps come, they're going to be like, oh shit. Lynn was trying to tell me about this, or so-and-so was trying to tell me about this and I didn't listen. And at that point, it's not going to matter because it's like, you didn't listen. So these are the consequences of the choices that you made. And that's why I love that sentence. Have you ever read As a Man Thinketh by James Allen?
Part of it. Because I took Bob Proctor and he's big on that.
Yes. You know that Bob Proctor passed away? I didn't even know that. I found that out like a month ago.
Last February of 2022.
Well, As a Man Thinketh, I definitely got to read that book again. But in that book, he says, circumstances don't make a man, it reveals it to himself. And I think that very thing is something we all have to keep in mind. It's something I'm always thinking about because I look at my current circumstances and I'm like, especially when it comes to my family and my living situation and everything, I'm like, I made a choice and now I have to make other choices now because this ain't working for me. I thought I was doing the right thing, but it's not helping me.
I'm always evaluating myself too. Yep.
Right. But that's what's going to happen with a lot of people is that those circumstances are going to reveal itself to them. And then it's going to be too late for a change because then it's just going to be stuck. It's like, all right, you're in the FEMA camp. You're going to have to get the mark of the beast or whatever it may be. Matter of fact, look at the people that got, the science appliance. Look at the people that got that satanic serum in their veins.
Yeah.
Then they're getting all these health issues if they didn't die. And it's like, you can't even be upset at this point no more. You fucked up.
I know.
And people told you not to do it.
I read a book before BC. I read a book called The Choice, and it was a lady in her 90s wrote about her story about surviving the concentration camps. I think she was from Hungary. And she said, and what always haunted me, because this is before lockdown, so this was always in the back of my head, because I kind of wanted to know, like, how the heck did Nazism happen? How did we get all those Jewish people to the camps? How did they allow, I can't comprehend how that was allowed to happen. And she said, my neighbors tried to warn my family, but we didn't believe them. And it still gives me chills every time I say it, because I'm like, oh my God, I was living it, because I was trying to tell everybody and nobody believed me.
Is there anybody that's in your family or your circle of influence from the past that has come to you and be like, hey, Lynn, you was right. I'm sorry for treating you the way I did.
But it wasn't that we ever were on bad terms, but my one cousin, the thing is that I was saying how he's awake to what's going on and we've been reconnected. But I was talking about that jab agenda. I've been talking about it since the 90s. And I said, I can't believe all the people, because I got out of the fight. I didn't want to live my life in a fight. I didn't want to be involved in politics when they were trying to do this. Like, there was a National Vaccine Information Center. They were always asking for money. They were fighting it because the one lady's son had injury from the jabs. That's how it all started for her. And I was a part of it. It was Barbara Loe Fisher. And this was back in the 90s. And I was always putting the information out in my office. And I just decided I don't want to be in a fight. I just want to live my life. I experienced grace. I know we're supposed to be in a higher vibration. Being in that fight puts you in a lower vibration. I want to be an example and live my life. And if whoever I attract, right? But there was nobody like famous in that movement at the time. And I said to my cousin, I said, how about, like, I didn't know, like, we have, like, Bobby Kennedy has been fighting for vaccines. He's like, oh, he's been doing that for years. I'm like, not when I was in it. He's like, yep. He goes, you were ahead of all of us. He goes, and we didn't believe you. I'm like, he wasn't in it. He came later. I was saying it before. So I thought that was final validation. He goes, you've been on it before. We were not ready to hear what you had to say. You were right on all of it. And I think they all thought I was nuts when I was having my son at home, when I didn't have him vaccinated, and when I homeschooled, you know what I mean? Like, I was ahead of the time in a way, a little bit, to the way it's reached a critical mass in that respect. I mean, it really takes my breath away how it's all unfolded and unfolding and what we're living in. And yet there's beautiful parts and there's other parts that are so concerning and, like, oh my God, it's never going to change sometimes. Other times I'm like, oh wow, look what's shifted. And I don't know. It's a lot going on.
A lot going on. And you're still ahead of the game right now. So keep doing what you're doing, because that isn't it interesting how, and this is something that I learned in my 20s in marketing and business. They'll say that, like, if you try to sell a product to a family member that's beneficial to them, they won't want to listen or buy it. But if somebody else that they don't know comes to them with that same product, they'll be like, oh, this is great.
All the time.
Right. Yeah. And that's what happened with you. It's like your cousin had to hear it from somebody else that he respects or whatever, or looks up to or admires. It's like, oh, I'm going to listen. Oh, it's real. Now it's like, oh, but that's what my cousin was telling me the whole time. And I thought it was bullshit. Now it's like, no, it's real. And that goes back to people looking in the mirror. It's like being honest with themselves. Most people want to bullshit themselves. They want to bullshit themselves throughout their entire physical existence here in this body, where it's like they don't really want to take that time to look at themselves and their experiences honestly. They're looking for the next sensation that can put them in a state of delusion, because the delusion is euphoric. It's dopamine. It's a drug. It's like, I just want to feel good. If I could just feel good every second of the day. That's why you got people that look forward to the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I don't do that no more. I used to be like that. I'm like, fuck that. I'm looking forward to waking up in the morning.
That's right.
That's it.
And what can I create in this day, in this moment? You don't live on
moment.
that.
Right. I look forward to the present moment of every moment. That's how I live my life now. And it's exciting. It's exciting because even when it's not exciting, it's still exciting because I'm in a state of peace.
Yes. And that's what I tell people. If you can get through your negative emotions and not be so afraid to face yourself in the mirror, it's not going to consume you. You're actually going to be set free. And then you're going to be able to live your life from that place of grace, peace, bliss, because you're still going to have challenges, but now it's not as scary. And now it's a game. It's like fun. Oh, I'm going to have an awakening from this experience. So how am I going to see? I'm going to learn something through this experience. It's going to bring me to the next thing that I need. And you have to have contrast in order to create. So, that's the thing. Like, people are afraid to go through their pain, but that's where the liberation is.
Absolutely. Well, Lynn, I know you got to go. So before you go, any parting words or anything you want to mention for the people that are going to be listening to this episode?
I guess leave it at that. Don't be afraid to go through your pain, because you're going to find your grace state. And that's what we're all looking for. Everything you think you're searching for is just to find that God place within, that God source within. And that's when life becomes magical. And that's how we're going to shift this stuff. That's how we raise the consciousness, and we can start creating heaven on earth.
Absolutely. I was thinking about how we was going through that. I was going through the emotions with the beginning of this podcast. And not being, I didn't get to put the artwork up, right? Because it just wasn't, no matter what method I try to get the artwork to save on the computer, it just wasn't working. And after, this episode is now complete, I'm like, I know why. It's like the way you work through that struggle too is you have to understand. And I remember Robert Riopel, he's my very first guest from Podmatch, said, everything happens for a reason, and that reason is there to serve you. So the reason that things weren't working out is there to serve you. That's how you work through the pain. You understand that the pain is there to serve you for something greater that's not as bad as you think it is. It's just the process that you have to go through in order to get there. And if you can find peace and patience with that, then you're good. You'll work through it. You'll work through the shortcomings and the transgressions and all that other stuff that is so temporary, to where you can find that peace within the struggles. What the scriptures talks about, that long suffering that we endure is for a reason. That's what makes you chosen too. As much as you and I don't feel comfortable on this planet, we're still here for a reason.
That's right.
And it's for us to serve at a greater level, for others to be an example of that beautiful divine light.
My greatest challenges have also given me my greatest awakenings.
And it's made you a great example of that divine light, that divine wisdom that we were created from, that we come from, that image. So thank you for coming on to the show, and peace and blessings to you. And I'm going to end the show here. Let me... Thank
you so much. I enjoyed every minute.
Yeah. And I'm going to have you come back for season 6. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a while before I put season 6 out, because I'm actually going to probably end season 5 tonight. If everything works out how it's supposed to, because I'm going to put 3 more episodes that I've already recorded out. And then it'll be my 500th episode according to seasons, because I have way more than 500 episodes, but this will be my 500th episode on the network of awareness without the bonus, adding in bonus and other stuff. So once I do this finale, I think I'm going to wait at least, I think I'm going to wait 2 to 4 weeks before I put out season 6, and I'll just do bonus episodes. So when I start season 6, I'll do a pre-record with you to have it for a season 6 episode, because I'm going to record several, as many as I can, and then just put them out on a calendar to be published on, throughout the weeks.
Love it. I look forward to it.
All right. So thank you for coming on and enjoy the rest of your day. And I am going to, do a quick outro here. All right. So brothers and sisters, I hope that this episode gave you great edification, great substance. It's apocalyptic, but don't worry, because all is possible through the grace of the Most High. So with that being said, don't be overwhelmed. Just be present, because when you live in the present, there is always an opportunity for a new beginning. And don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because the light is and always will be within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. This is ORRA the Informationalist with Dr. Lynn Carey, saying peace, brothers and sisters, and shalom.